This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on visa and labour laws. The participants are A.N. Ram, former diplomat, and Simran Sodhi, Foreign Affairs Editor, The Statesman.
We seem to be having these incidents repeated quite often. Miss Devyani's incident is the latest, where Indian diplomats posted in New York or in other parts of the world, especially we have seen this happening in New York, are being pulled up for hiring domestic help. And the allegations are that these domestic helps are hired in violation of labor laws.
There are two issues involved here. Firstly, the US government's attitude towards consuls general and their staff posted in New York, unlike the diplomatic mission in Washington DC, which enjoys full diplomatic immunity, is somewhat equivocal. I am not sure if they recognize that the consulate general and its staff is entitled to full diplomatic immunity. Now, this is a question which can be debated and discussed under the Vienna Convention. There are certain rights which we have. India believes that the consulates general do have the same rights as diplomats posted in any other mission, and consequently our diplomats should be given the same privileges and responsibilities which arise as a result of their diplomatic status. The second issue is the India-based domestic help that you referred to. Now, the domestic assistants, generally speaking, in our socio-economic conditions, are paid good but a modest salary in New York when they go abroad or any station abroad. Now, this obviously does not match with the minimum wages which the Americans pay to their domestic help, should they have any. Very few people have it. So there is a mismatch there. What the Americans don't understand and appreciate sufficiently is that this domestic help, arguably, is in fact a part of the consulate general, an official who travels on official passport issued by the government of India. He is not a private individual who has gone to New York to look for employment. He is already in employment in a contract which he has signed or she has signed with his or her employer. Consequently, the American understanding of our socio-economic system is somewhat flawed. And I think a dialogue should take place with the Americans to sort out this matter once for all. As you very rightly have observed, these kinds of things happening, particularly lately, to the embarrassment of all concerned. One final point I would like to make. The government of India should also now review the wisdom of sending India-based help with officers going abroad. The concept of sending India-based domestic help needs to be reviewed not only on account of the kind of incidents that have arisen, which yourself outlined, but also because of the impact it has on the domestic help's own mental well-being, physical well-being. They are marooned in an apartment outside their home and hearth in the comfort of their family in India, and the conditions abroad are so dramatically different that it's very difficult to keep even mental balance. So I would suggest that the government review this whole question of sending India-based domestic assistance with officers going abroad on postings, although it is their entitlement. And should the need arise to send domestic assistance, it should be a permanent staff attached to the ambassador's residence or to the consul general's residence, and that should be on terms which the government can negotiate with the staff which is going abroad, standard terms, and the others may be asked to employ local domestic help, as is the common practice.
The question that is being faced in the light of the present incident is a question of Ms. Devyani is being accused by the New York attorney, Mr. Preet Bharara, of violating two laws. Basically, he's saying that she is in violation of labor laws. She is also in violation of visa laws, that allegedly, this is what the US is making out a case, that while applying for the visa for the domestic help, there was certain information which was not reported correctly. My question is a broader one. That there is, of course, the question of diplomatic immunity for Ms. Devyani and for any other diplomat. Does that diplomatic immunity hold in this case where the offense is primarily coming under the labor laws?
I don't think that the American labor laws can apply to Indians going on service to the Consulate General or to officials who have diplomatic immunity. This is the land of India. That building, which is called the Consulate General of India in 3 East 64th Street in New York, is technically a land which represents India as a nation there in the United States. Anyone working there who enjoys diplomatic immunity carries this immunity with him to his or her residence, and they cannot therefore be questioned by the American law. The laws concerning omissed visas are the prerogative of the host country. Now, if the host country insists that there are certain declarations to be made or certain information is to be provided, then that has to be complied in full and honestly. If there has been any error in this, then the best course would be for the Americans to bring it to the notice of the Government of India, to the Ministry of External Affairs, or to our ambassador in Washington, D.C., and the officer can be asked to either send the domestic assistant back or to comply with the regulations as per the American laws for obtaining a visa only. To the limited purpose of the visas, the Americans are entitled to ask for information to be provided correctly and not falsely.
India has also reacted quite strongly to this incident, and we had the Foreign Secretary summoning the US Ambassador to India, Nancy Powell, and it seems that India has termed this incident as unacceptable, and it has further been termed that the diplomat was humiliated. Do you believe that this recent incident would somehow also now cast a shadow on the Indo-US relationship?
Firstly, the two charges are very serious and they are very correct. The diplomat was humiliated because she was apparently handcuffed and taken into custody, which is absolutely not acceptable for an Indian diplomat who enjoys diplomatic immunity under the Vienna Convention. As far as the second thing is concerned, well, the Americans have obviously overstepped their limits in dealing with this issue, which could have been dealt with diplomatically more nicely. You don't deal with friendly countries in this manner. If the Americans say that their relations with India are important and they value it, and India reciprocates those sentiments, then the right thing to do would be to send an American official to the Foreign Office here in New Delhi and say that, look, this is happening. Would you like to take remedial action? And the Government of India, perhaps in somewhat in a quiet way, agree to take that action if found that such an action is warranted. But for the Americans to assume that the only way of dealing with this is to publicly humiliate an Indian diplomat, then obviously they are missing the wood for the trees. Now, will it affect Indo-US relations? Incidents like this do leave a little scar, but I don't think the overall picture will change dramatically because Indo-US relations are based on their own logic. There is a rationale which completely now is advancing the relationship to our mutual advantage. It's mutually interdependent relationship in which both sides have much to gain by having good relations. Would America want to risk rupturing these relations by such incidents in the future? I would strongly suggest that America should adopt other ways of dealing with such issues, even where there is merit in them. So my hope is that our overall relations will not be allowed to be affected by this one incident, but this one incident must be corrected very, very quickly before the scars run deeper into our psyche. And I would not accept this as America's final answer.
There have also been reports that the diplomat was released in New York only after she surrendered her passport. So in effect, she cannot leave the US since her passport has been surrendered to the courts. So this seems to almost point to the fact that the US is, or they have a solid case and they are kind of going ahead with it because they've released her against a bond which she had to furnish. So my question to you is, how do you see this playing in the future? What is that India can do diplomatically so that this matter is sorted out in a more amicable fashion?
As I said at the very outset of this conversation, the Americans do believe, and I don't know rightly or wrongly, but they do believe that the consulates which are distinct from an embassy in Washington, D.C., which is Ambassador of India is Ambassador Plenipotentiary to the United States, extraordinary and plenipotentiary to the United States. Consul General of India has no such title. Consequently, the Americans believe their interpretation of Vienna Convention appears to be, I am not sure, that Consul General and his staff is not entitled to the same immunities which an embassy official is or the ambassador is. Now this has to be sorted out. You cannot have this grey area where the two sides have differing perceptions on the immunity of their officials, and this can be sorted out only through discussion and dialogue. If the international community, and Vienna Convention is a multilateral international covenant, seems to think that everyone, including members of the Consulate General, are entitled to immunities under the Vienna Convention, then the Americans must fall in line. On the other hand, it is the view of the majority of members of the Vienna Convention that the immunities don't extend to the Consulate Generals. Then it's another matter. It should be brought to the notice of all countries and they will certainly take action accordingly. Incidentally, India does accept the jurisdiction of the Vienna Convention in consulates in India. So we expect reciprocity too. There's another angle to this, reciprocity. What are we giving to the Americans in Chennai, in Kolkata, in Mumbai, where their consulates exist and elsewhere? We are giving them full protection, full diplomatic immunity. We expect the Americans to do the same for Indian diplomats posted in New York, Houston, San Francisco, Chicago, and our consulates elsewhere in the United States.
If I was to play the devil's advocate and argue from what the US is arguing, their main argument seems to be on the premise of the basic salary which is given per hour. Apparently, these days the US labor laws permit that at least $9 or above $9 is what should be the minimum wage per hour to a laborer. And Ms. Devyani's housemate, she in her application has alleged that her minimum salary per hour was $3 or maybe even less than $3. So what the US is arguing or putting forward their case is that it's a gap $3 versus $9. This in itself constitutes to a violation of the United States labor laws. So my question is, this thing becomes very complicated in the sense that if we look at it from the perspective of simply the United States domestic labor laws, then this is the case. But if you look at it from the perspective that you have a diplomat who enjoys diplomatic immunity, then how are the two things going to get resolved per se?
The American case is built on the assumption that the consulate general officials do not enjoy immunity. Even for traffic violations, traffic offences, parking tickets and all that stuff, they don't give any special consideration to the consulate staff. Here the question is, are the Americans trying to extend their domestic laws to the consulate general, which is a foreign entity in the United States? If they are, then the Vienna Convention is being called into question. It is true that the Indian wages are far lower than American standard wages. I think the minimum wages today are $10 or closer to $10, whereas the government of India does not pay this kind of a money to an Indian diplomat going abroad to pay his house help. Consequently, there is a violation of the labor laws of America. But then this particular individual, the domestic help, is not working in America. The domestic help is working in the house of a consulate official who enjoys diplomatic immunity. And that house itself, I will argue, in a court of law, is protected by Vienna Convention and diplomatic immunity. So where is the question of American laws being applied to an Indian who is traveling on an official passport A, who is technically government official because he is traveling on an official passport, and B, who is working with a family who enjoys diplomatic immunity? So America's attitude here is totally unacceptable to India, as the laws stand today and as our understanding of it is. But if there is any doubt, I'm suggesting I'm going a step further. If there is any doubt, what the Americans should do is, before straight away sending for the police to arrest Ms. Devyani, is to first to have a chat with the Consul General or with our ambassador in Washington, D.C., that such and such a thing is happening. What do you have to say about this? Without any such warning, without any such chat, without any wish to solve this amicably through dialogue, the Americans are asserting their position, which is untenable in our view in existing international covenants. So I would say that the government of India in future should seriously think, A, of engaging the US in a dialogue so that this is sorted out on a longer term basis, and B, in this particular case, ask the Americans that if they do not call off whatever action they are proposing to take or have taken, then it will have serious impact on our bilateral relations.
From your own diplomatic experience, do you feel that this is an issue that will be sorted out soon and amicably?
I'm sure it will be. I'm not sure how soon, but it will be, because both countries have a huge stake in maintaining good and cordial relations. The Americans know that this brinkmanship does not yield results. In fact, it does not win friends either. So the Americans will probably also try to find a way out of this. And we have taken this up with Ambassador Nancy Powell here in Delhi. And I'm sure our ambassador in Washington, D.C. has taken this up also. Before long, I'm sure this will be sorted out.
And with this, we bring the discussion to an end. Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on visa and labor laws. The participants were A.N. Ram, former diplomat, and Simran Sodhi, Foreign Affairs Editor, The Statesman. It came to you in the program News Analysis, produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.